The head of the Kremlin, Putin, arrived in St Petersburg to take part in the traditional summit of CIS leaders and to have fun at the Igora resort complex in the Leningrad region. However, this visit turned into a real disaster for the city's residents. The entire center of St Petersburg and the main transport arteries were paralyzed due to the closures. Traffic jams reached a record 10 points, spreading even to remote areas, including the outer ring of the Kyiv. Several metro stations were closed, which led to massive crowds of people. Residents of the city are expressing their discontent en masse on social networks, cursing him for choosing St. Petersburg for vacations and meetings with colleagues. The city dwellers are outraged that they found themselves in a trap for the sake of Putin's personal comfort. He decided to have some fun in his hometown. How did he even come up with the idea of holding a summit here? Let him sit in Moscow, writes the Petersburgers. The difficult weather only makes the situation worse. Wet snow and icy roads add chaos to the traffic. At one point, the entire city literally froze. Cars and public transport came to a standstill. Putin's decision to go on an excursion to the Hermitage caused particular indignation. The idea of the guarantor to go on an excursion to the Hermitage turned out to be extremely fruitful. The closed center and the outer ring of the ring road very quickly led to the densest traffic jams throughout the city. 6 million people were asked to treat the cultural needs of the president with understanding. The inconveniences for the peasants are temporary, but the culture-multiculture is eternal, writes Russian analyst Anatoly Nesmiyan. An informal meeting before the new year is a long-standing tradition of the Commonwealth. This year will be no exception. According to the program at the summit, Putin will sum up the results of Russia's chairmanship of the CIS in 2024. After that, the leaders will be able to communicate with each other in an informal setting and exchange views on current international issues, the Kremlin said. Currently, the CIS consists of 11 countries: Azerbaijan, Armenia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Moldova, Russia, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan and Ukraine. At the same time, as Putin noted, de facto Moldova and Ukraine have long been nominal participants and are not involved in the work of the association. The first attack by the Ukrainian Defense Forces on Russian positions near the village of Liptsy in the Kharkiv region using only robots is a major step in transforming the nature of warfare into something completely different in the 21st century, former Australian Army Major General Mick Ryan said, the Telegraph reports. But none of the battlefield functions envisioned for unmanned systems will be effective without a transformation of the military institutions that want to use them. That includes armies as well as the civilian bureaucracies that support them, he said. In the raid near Liptsy, Kiev forces used dozens of remote-controlled vehicles with machine guns, kamikaze drones, as well as aerial surveillance and mining drones in support roles, according to Ukrainian military officials. We are talking about dozens of units of robotic and unmanned equipment simultaneously on a small section of the front, said Vladimir Degtyarev, a representative of the Ukrainian brigade charter. He said the attack was successful. According to the publication, 4 regiments of the Russian army are trying to advance in this area. 2,000 Ukrainian fighters are confronting approximately 6,000 Russian soldiers here. It is noted that a similar but smaller scale example of robotic warfare was recently registered in the Kursk region of Russia. There, the Ukrainians deployed a 4-wheeled robot with a Yorost machine gun to clear a trench. Let us recall that, as media wrote, the 13th Brigade of the National Guard of Ukraine carried out an operation using ground and air drones to storm Russian positions in the Kharkiv region. This operation was evidence of the high level of technological training of the Ukrainian military. We are talking about dozens of units of robotic and unmanned equipment simultaneously on a small section of the front, noted a representative of the 13th National Guard Brigade. The operation involved surveillance and mining drones, ground blasting operations, and armed ground operations. This technology allowed the Ukrainian military to clear Russian trenches in the area of Gluboko, but the main problem remains holding the positions after a successful assault. The machines are breaking down. Their data links are vulnerable to enemy jamming, experts say. As the RAND Research Center discovered during simulations, Russian jammers can significantly affect the operation of automated systems. After 3 years of war, Ukraine has become a world leader in the use of military robotics, but such innovations are driven not only by technological progress, but also by the need to compensate for a lack of human resources. This reflects the complexity of the current situation. Ukrainian forces continue to hold off a much larger enemy using both traditional and high-tech defenses. Russian opposition politician Mark Fagin believes that Putin will never agree to the deployment of NATO troops on Ukrainian territory to control the contact line, as this will make it impossible to attack Ukraine again. He expressed this opinion on Espresso TV. How can the resumption of war be prevented? What is the value of signed agreements if they are broken by the very next morning? A demilitarized zone should consist of European contingents, not American, but specifically European military forces. It said that up to 100,000 troops may be needed to cover the entire 1,300-kilometer front line, creating a demilitarized zone. And it seems Trump likes this idea. He indicated that such a zone without American troops would be acceptable. However, this is a major sticking point. Putin will never agree under any circumstances to the presence of NATO troops, which are essentially European armies entering this demilitarized zone in tens of thousands and obviously staying there permanently. They will never leave, and Putin knows this well. This means he won't be able to restart the war whenever he feels like it, once he achieves certain goals, consolidates them, re-prepares and attacks again, said Fagin. The politician believes that Donald Trump is trying to push Europe to pay more attention to military needs and defense. However, Trump does not want to completely detach himself from European problems. What does Trump ultimately want? He truly wants to shift security issues and challenges to Europe so that it manages its own security independently. On one hand, this seems like a sort of push, useful for Europe, which has become too complacent, cut military production, reduced its army and moved away from universal conscription. At some point, transitioning to a professional military may have been an objective decision, but it significantly reduced the size of military contingents and so on. On the other hand, stimulating Europe to spend more, raising defense spending to 2%, even 3%, improving the efficiency of European armies to secure borders with Russia is one thing. Completely withdrawing from these issues is another. Trump's stance lies somewhere in the middle, he added.